All right, let's look at this graphing. We are working with quadratics, and you know quadratics is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now we're looking at them in a different form, and this is in y minus k is equal to a times x minus h quantity squared. Now, sometimes I just show this as y is equal to a times x minus h quantity squared, and I add the k over. I like this a little bit better because this is how it would go in on your TI-84. So, the first thing I'm going to ask you, do you know what a parabola is? Do you know what a parabola is? A parabola is a U-shaped graph, and it could either go upright or upside down. If it's going upright, it's going to be a positive a, so we're talking about this a term in front. And if it's going down, it's a negative. The next thing we're going to talk about is the vertex. The vertex is hk. So notice the h in this case coming out of the quantity squared has to have a sign change. And the k, I like showing it this way because it's normal. Where you guys are used to, anytime it comes out of a parenthesis, you change it, and where it's not in a parenthesis, you wouldn't change it. So just try to notice that that k, if it's on the right side, is positive. All right, the axis of symmetry. This is the one that kids get wrong the most, and I'm really picky about this because the axis of symmetry is a line, and this line is going to be x is equal to h. So we're going to do these right here by hand, and there's a lot you're going to learn about graphing parabolas. Let's look at example 1. Example 1 says y plus 2 is equal to x plus 3 quantity squared. Now, I probably would put this in here and bring the 2 over by subtracting it. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you know what the vertex is? Remember, the vertex is the hk. But the h coming out of that parenthesis has to be a sign change, and the k will be the same, -2. The axis of symmetry is a line, and I'm going to graph this for you in a little bit, but remember this has to be x equals the h, which is -3. So there's a couple things that I need you to learn. The first thing, we'll have to learn how to graph this. So hopefully you could see my graph. I know that the graph is graphed the vertex at -3, -2. So I just put that dot at -3, -2, and I'm going to say, hey, this is the vertex. Now, if you didn't learn this previously in Algebra 1, please take note of these steps. Over 1, up 1. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 5. Over 1, up 7. And these numbers, every other, come from your perfect squares, which makes sense because a quadratic is an x squared. So remember, if I have all my perfect squares, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, notice they have a change of 3, 5, 7, 9. They do go up by your odd numbers. So that's why we have these over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, over 1 up 5, over 1 up 7. Now, what I mean by this is we are going to start on the vertex, and from the vertex we're going to go over 1, up 1. And we're going to go left and right. Now, from that point, we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to go over 1, up 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I could keep going with this parabola, but I don't really need to because I can see what the parabola is going to look like. And I always tell my students, try to have those 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice this vertex right here is a minimum. And I know that it's going to be positive because remember this a term right here is a 1, and this is a positive 1. So it's going to be a positive. It's going to be shaped like a U. All right, the only thing I haven't done is graphed the axis of symmetry. So remember, I'm going to graph a line at x equals -3. Now, do they typically ask for you to graph this? No, but you will have to write it as a line every time, x equals -3. So we have learned how to find the vertex. We've learned how to find the axis of symmetry. We've learned this very important method of graphing where we go over 1 up 1 over 1 up 3 over 1 up 5 over 1 up 7. And most importantly, we've learned how to graph our parabolas. All right, let's look at this one. Again, I'm going to put it in that form y equals negative x plus 1 quantity squared plus 3. I know my vertex is at -1, +3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph my vertex. -1, +3 is right there. Good. I know my axis of symmetry is at the h, which is x equals -1. And we did learn this a long time ago, that x equals the opposite of b over 2a. So if you were in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, that's how you would graph that. And now I'm going to graph knowing the pattern in which I know, and that is from this point, I'm going to go over 1, down 1. Why am I moving down? Because of this negative right here at the A position. Over 1, down 1. Over 1, down 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's going to give me my graph. And again, you don't necessarily have to graph the axis of symmetry, but I know the axis of symmetry is a line. If I was to fold my parabola over this line, it should look the exact same on the left and on the right. One other thing we need to know, this is a maximum. This vertex is at a maximum. It's the highest point of this graph. All right, let's look at this one. Find an equation of a parabola having a vertex of -1, -2, and a point containing 2, -5. Well, I know my vertex is at HK. I also know my point would be an xy, right? Aren't all xy points xy? And my formula is y is equal to a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. So I'm just going to put these numbers in. Notice the letter that I don't have represented here is a. So I'm obviously solving for a. So let's put in what we know. I know that my y is -5. I do not know my a, so I'm looking for my a term. I know that my x is 2 minus, well, my h is -1. So that is going to be a plus, and my k is -2. So I'm going to currently solve for a. -5 equals, well, this is 3. 3 squared is 9a minus 2. If I add 2 over, I get -3 equals 9a. And when I divide each side through by 9, a is equal to -1/3. Now, did I answer the question? It says to find an equation. I did not at all. Okay, I solved for a, which is very important because I need my vertex and I need my a to put it back into an equation. Y is equal to, my a was -1/3, and then I have to use x, well, remember that's x minus h, well, that's going to be x plus 1, quantity squared, minus 2. So my final solution will be y equals -1/3, x plus 1, quantity squared, minus 2. And that is my answer for this one. It's right here.